Cool. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, actually, to our virtual tasting routine, we can already say. This time in English, as we have special guests from South Africa. But more on that later. First of all, what do we have today? We have a tasting with Môreson. So we're going to have a special package of wines. It's actually 4 wines that we're going to introduce and drink together with Peter this time. Unfortunately, we have to excuse Clayton as he's still busy in the cellar. We're just bottling the new vintage of the Pinotage, and there seem to be a few issues, nothing that bad, but unfortunately we have to excuse him. Maybe we can do that next time. Yeah, we're going to introduce 4 wines today. It's 2 white wines and 2 red wines. Actually, with a little twist, we have, as we ran out of the Dr. Reason Why, have a second white wine with the Môreson, but we're going to introduce that just now. So let's put our seatbelts on and travel to South Africa once again. Yeah, we're starting in Munich. I don't know where you guys are at the moment, but just think about also joining that plane and going to South Africa. From South Africa, we're going to Franschhoek. Peter is gonna introduce Franschhoek to you as well. So we have the wine from Môreson, and now it's the time to introduce Peter. Hello, Peter. Thanks for finding the time.
Anytime.
Yeah, maybe to start off, before we talk about the wine from, how's your situation at the moment? I know there's one good thing, at least today. So wine exports are possible again, right?
Yes, correct. We're very happy that they opened the ports, made it available to export now. We've gone from a level 5, that's a very serious level, very controlled level, to level 4 that gradually it will become easier and easier as we go along, really lightening the load on us more and more. Obviously, the more they lighten the load, the more alcohol we can start selling. So we're happy every time the level goes down.
So level 4 means you can do export, but level 3 only allows you to do the local sales, right? Because right now
level 3 would be local sales, export. It will be pretty much open the gates for us, really, to be quite honest, that we're very looking forward to. Currently, a lot of farms are doing pre-sales kind of to keep themselves busy, but in the end of the day, we want to make the client happy. That's the whole idea. So we're just waiting.
Very cool. All right.
And doing virtual tastings.
All right, then we have the pleasure to taste the wines, actually. So everyone who has the wines in front of him can now pour himself some either Dr. Reason Why or Môreson. As already explained, we ran out of Dr. Reason Why and then had to switch to Môreson. So we thought we'd gonna introduce both of them. So let's start off with that.
So we start off with the Môreson, yeah?
Exactly. So maybe Peter, a few words about the Môreson. It is not a pure Chardonnay, right?
So it's about 75% Chardonnay, 25% Semillon. Both components wooded. You're looking at about 10 months in oak, so it's not overdone. It has that little bit of nuttiness of the Semillon that comes through, a little bit of a roasty, toasty note towards it, but the Chardonnay component will always dominate with 75%. So the Semillon just gives it that little bit of a longer finish on the palate, I suppose. It's about 15% of the volume done in new oak. Then basically in the end component, then we start our blending process. But a very nice full-on wine screw cap, so obviously your corkage component is not in effect. As I mentioned, it's a brilliant food wine. It's made for those, I know the Italians are going to love this, those pastas, those heavy mama dishes, you know, spaghetti, things like that. It will take you through the lockdown for sure.
And that's a good thing, I think. Maybe, yeah, thanks for the introduction. Maybe a short note on the Semillon situation with the whole project, maybe.
Yes, so Clayton started a very interesting project. He's the leader with about 8 other winemakers. And they took on Semillon as a cultivar, kind of making it more of a Franschhoek based cultivar. Yeah. Currently, a lot of your Cap Classique cultivars, your Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier are fairly dominant in Franschhoek. But you don't really see single cultivar Semillons in Franschhoek. A lot of people don't even know that our neighbor grows the oldest Semillon in South Africa. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's quite a nice honor to be next to them. But the idea is each winemaker will bring their own kind of winemaking to the game. If it's as small as using a single clone or fermenting it in terracotta, they all bring something different. Yeah. Now, these wines are now not available yet. It will be available to the public later on, but it will be very well maintained by Clayton, obviously.
Okay. So we're gonna have to be very nice to Clayton in order to get a few bottles at least to Germany. Okay.
Yeah, which is nice because we've talked about it last night actually with a very good client of ours, and we kind of introduced the whole project, and it's quite unique because Semillon is very rare as a single varietal, right?
Yes.
So
it is.
This kind of wine with that has so much flavor and in this very unique characteristics as a single varietal is quite a cool thing to do, I think.
Yeah, and I think Semillon is an interesting grape. Also in terms of, I mean, it is a grape that needs attention, right? It is a grape that is probably a food wine, but you can also enjoy it on the evening. But it's not that wine that you enjoy on your terrace. Probably that's more like a more fruity Sauvignon Blanc maybe or Chenin Blanc. But Semillon is quite a complex variety, right? And that makes it
correct. There's a lot of tertiary aromas. Also, when it comes to Semillon, it's the aftertaste. It's always been the aftertaste. There's always an oak component somewhere involved. That's also where I think Clayton's project will be pretty cool because it brings something new. It brings a new aspect. Maybe it's nicer for the younger generation to try something new. Maybe that's the way to go. And a price point of 80, well, they're looking at about 80 to 100 rand a bottle. I don't want to really say too much, keep something for a surprise. But at that price point, you can enjoy a good bottle of Semillon with
exactly.
Maybe quickly to show the bottle. I mean, for the guys that don't have it, you can obviously find that on our website. I think maybe you can see that like this. So it's actually the Miss Molly range, which I think quite interesting to talk about very briefly. So the Miss Molly range is kind of one of the ranges that Môreson has and is actually quite successful with. The idea behind it is that a certain amount of sales comes from a certain amount of the sale actually goes to guiding dogs, which is a very, very interesting and very cool idea.
Yeah. I mean, to be quite honest, just to expand on that a little bit, Miss Molly's our owner is Weimaraner. She's probably about 8 years, 10 years now. Weimaraners don't show their age that well. Let me put it like this: she's well matured.
Like a good one
of the pack. Yeah. Currently, there's about 6 dogs running on the farm. So we're, on the farm, we're very interested in our dogs. Also, how we can help, building guide dogs, helping them expand a little bit on what they need to do. So, the proceeds goes to that organization. Miss Molly is meant to be a playful, nice, fresh range. There's nothing complex about it. Really, I mean, from label to drinking it. When you take a bottle of Miss Molly out, the idea is you shouldn't have to think about what food shall we have it with. It should be how many bottles of it can we drink. And that's always been the idea of it.
Which we should, I think, with the idea should be with more wines, not what you should get with it, but how much you can drink of it.
Exactly. No, exactly. And I mean, of the Chard Sem blend, it used to be actually called No Putty Back. So, but that's back in the day. That when I started at Môreson about 5 years ago, it was called No Putty Back. Everybody found the name amazing. With no putting back, you had to finish. In theory, you can put it back in the fridge. Since then, we've actually found it so premium that we've incorporated it into Miss Molly, making it a easier drinking wine. The previous vintages was a little bit more complex in the No Putty Back. This Mannerborn, we've only brought out 2 vintages of this so far. So really, it has a long way still to go. You're going to see a lot more of it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing wine at that price point, especially. Maybe coming to that, I would say we head on to the next wine. Where, I mean, Peter, you already poured yourself some. We're gonna go to the Dr. Reason Why Chardonnay, this time unoaked, so unwooded Chardonnay. Very interesting. Also in the whole concept of the range of Môreson, I think it's quite interesting to start off with the unoaked and more easy drinking Chardonnay.
Okay, so this is for me a spectacular wine as far as unwooded Chardonnays goes. I don't know if you've ever had the honor of having Chablis. It reminds me a little bit of back in the day when I had Chablis. Now, I think it's about 4 years ago, a year after I started Môreson, the first unwooded Chardonnay. So we've gone through a process since then of elimination. Each year, Clayton would take one component out of fermentation. So we have terracotta pot, we have non-block eggs, and then we have stainless steel. That's how it actually started. And then now we're left with this amphora Chardonnay. Now that's pretty cool. Amphora is I mean, if you see it, it's majestic. It's what you want to have in your house. It's a terracotta pot made purely of terracotta. It's not treated inside whatsoever. It's a little bit of porosity on it. And again, it's old school. It comes from ancient Rome, Gaul. They used to ferment beer and wine in it. We all know that. But they'll always tell you it makes the wine feel at home. Remember, terracotta is an earthly vessel in the end of the day. Now, the porosity of it is important. It lets a little bit of oxygen in. It starts micro-oxidizing the wine. That it sounds awful, but it's a good thing. It creates a little bit of density to the wine. But then you get this fresh minerality in the back of the palate, a little bit of a elderflower, a hint of butteriness. It kind of tastes like there's somewhere oak contact involved, but very, very little, very slight.
So you could say in that case, it brings together the advantages of both like stainless steel and also barrels, right?
Exactly. So this is purely amphora now. So sometimes you have a lot of people that reach for a Sauvignon Blanc. This is made for those clients that want to enjoy a Chardonnay, but they're limited because they only know Sauvignon Blanc to be good. So this is for your ABC. I'm sure you guys are familiar with ABC.
Yeah.
So this is really perfect. This has a big target market it reaches.
And I think what's quite special about that wine you would suggest or you would propose from actually like looking at the wine and seeing that okay, it's an unwooded Chardonnay, then it's very light and fresh and fruity, but it has a lot more structure to it than you might think. And I think that it's a perfect wine to show the advantages and what amphora in general can actually do to wine. So you get this very nice, interesting wine that is also quite fruity and quite fresh, but has a lot more complexity, and it's just a more interesting wine than you would have it based on a pure steel tank, I think.
Exactly. And if I can take that a step further, just to give you an idea. So all these fermentation methods that Clayton been using, he's been giving the opportunity. We're a very small family-owned business.
Yeah.
So with family-owned business, it's always cool. They say, okay, well, here's a budget for you. Go experiment as you need. Do something cool with the wine that's never been done before. So I think that's also, with the crazy head of Clayton, it really combined nicely with some very good raw produce as well. So in the end effect, you're left with a crystal clear fresh style wine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you just mentioned the craziness in a positive way of Clayton. I think he's a very, very funny and interesting and charismatic character. And then obviously a very talented winemaker with becoming winemaker of the year. Yeah, just very, very easy to very easy going and just, yeah, very talkative. And I think he has a lot of interesting, cool ideas that he is, yeah, definitely willing to share. So.
Yeah, no, and he's the cool thing is he's very open to education. He always wants to further inspiration. Let me put it like that.
Yeah.
So even, you know, when we have people come into the tasting room, he'll take them for tank samples, and I'll look at him funny, like, "What are you doing to my clients?" And then he's inspiring them to drink, to enjoy good wine.
Yeah.
So that's always been a cool trait that he has.
Yeah, and I think maybe adding up to that is that actually Clayton is not only focused on wine now, but he started making gin. So his Equinox gin is actually very, very nice. I think it's based on a Chardonnay grape varietal, and it's very different to the gin that you guys know, I think. And yeah, and I mean, now with the Corona crisis, he turned this into producing hand sanitizers. So it's amazing. He's, I think, full of ideas, and then every idea he kind of wants to use. So yeah, very interesting character.
No, he's very driven.
Yeah, like all of you at the Môreson, I have to say.
We hope so.
All right, I would say we head over to the next Chardonnay, this time a wooded Chardonnay, the Mercator. So I'm just going to pour it now. Maybe a few words about Môreson and Chardonnay. It seems to be a love story, right, Peter?
Yeah, so I guess you can call us Chardonnay nerds. We're very fond of Chardonnay as a grape, as a cultivar. You know, currently we have about 16 to 18 hectares of Chardonnay on the farm. And we cultivate about 13 different clones. So in theory, we're clone specific. So really, each Chardonnay you drink from us, a lot of work is put into it. It's not just done in stainless steel and let it ferment. It's a lot of personal touch has gone into it. Even these days, if you look at the cork, a lot of personal touch has gone. Labeling, everything is personal to us, to you. So I mean, from a Chardonnay perspective, we've done fairly well.
Yeah.
I mean, have a Chardonnay dessert wine. Not many farms in the world can say they have that.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, no, it's amazing. I think we've actually had it recently. I think a week ago. To a very nice like chocolate dessert, amazing wine. So I mean, as you said, it's very hard to do a Chardonnay-based dessert wine, and even harder to do a very good one. And I think Môreson is pretty high up when it comes to that, and I think that's an interesting fact of this kind of continuous range of Chardonnay that you guys have.
So sorry, this is now very off topic. I seem to go off topic quite often. But as you've mentioned, you know, I actually had some French winemakers from Sauternes not so long ago at the tasting room. I know Sauternes is sommelier based, so it falls into that kind of sommelier topic. They actually complimented us. Now that doesn't happen often. They produce some of the world's best dessert wines. So we really took that with big hands.
Amazing.
So it tells you a lot about adding Chardonnay to dessert wine, even going as far as adding it to gin.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see a Chardonnay gin, don't you want to buy it and drink it? That's the idea. Do something different.
Yeah, exactly.
And from the Chardonnay gins, it's still special, right? Like I had a friend who is very into gin, who tasted the Equinox, and he was blown away by the speciality of the wine, because he said he tasted some Chardonnay-based gins before, but he didn't like them because they were too overpowered. But with the Equinox, it's a perfect match. So it's pretty interesting. Coming back to the Mercator Chardonnay, we drifted away a bit. So the Chardonnay, this one is obviously French oak now. How many months has it been in French oak, and which fruits did it have?
So you're looking at 12 months in oak. It's 50% of the volume in new, 15 second. Malolactic fermentation does take place, so you do get that on the palate a little bit.
Maybe, sorry to interrupt, maybe to explain the process of malolactic fermentation, because I think that's quite an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know. So the malolactic fermentation happens when you have wine maturing in oak, so there's a second fermentation actually getting in place, right? And what happens to the acidity in the wine?
So generally it gives it a fresher acidity, I suppose. You do pick that up. But sometimes malolactic gives it a kind of an undertone, or earthy undertone, I suppose. So sometimes you do pick that up in wines. It just gives it more body. Yeah. That's the whole idea. With this one, it's always pretty cool. Because you see a little bit of mallow, you do get that strong kind of a pineapple finish, more of a citric finish. This reminds me always, well, when you're younger, when you're at this age now, I suppose, when you have pineapple out of a tin and the syrup that's left behind, your head tells you have to drink that as fast as possible. You want that acidity in your mouth. Yeah. That resembles this kind of aftertaste.
Exactly.
That every time I drink it, I feel like I have to have something, a fresh food with it, or to be quite honest, if you like wooded Chardonnay, it's just on its own.
Yeah. And I think what's quite nice about it is that you have this bold creaminess of the Chardonnay that you like, but also with this freshness, and that doesn't get lost. And I think what happens a lot, also leading maybe to the fact that a lot of people dislike Chardonnay when it's oaked, or especially when it's oaked, is that you tend to get these very powerful Chardonnays that tend to be a bit more on the wood side. So it feels a bit like actually biting into wood. And you don't really get these nice flavors that Chardonnay has to offer on its own, right? And then I think that's quite nice about this one, because it's still fresh and it's still fruity, but it has this very bold texture, and there's also like slight wood that you feel and smell and taste.
So it's also a combination of first and second full.
Yeah,
that really does help. I mean, if we do it all new oak, it can be a little bit more pungent. Yeah. Then it becomes a special wine. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's nice, fresh. Look, to be quite honest with you guys, 2017 is my personal favorite after 2015.
Yeah.
2017 is that type of consistency on the reds, so it gives it more complexity. On the whites, it's all about that freshness, about the acidity. Fair enough, 17 was a dry year for us. It was slap bam in the middle of the drought.
Exactly, yeah.
Sorry?
No, I said exactly. It was very dry, and a lot of farms had a lot of hustle with it. So it wasn't an easy year for winemakers, I would say.
No, but the thing is, drought always affects our yields. We can still maintain a quality. It's I think a French winemaker once told me, what was it? You can have a bad vintage, but a good winemaker to make a good vintage. So anything is possible.
That's also what Clayton told us when we talked about the drought. I think, what was it, a year and a half ago or something? That was exactly his words, so that he said, yeah, it's obviously a little less on yield, but then you have to focus even more. So the wine, if you make it right, tends to get even better. So that's maybe the seeing the good side of every shitty situation. So
And I mean, for to be quite honest, for Cup Class 6, it was nice. The acidity was exceptionally high. So really, Cup Class 6 17, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
but it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's also maybe a short, maybe
off topic
again, but I mean, Môreson is definitely also known for its MCT. So was sparkling or not sparkling, but Methode Cup Classique. And then I think both the normal Chardonnay one and the Pinot Noir one is amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about it, but we're considered a Cup Classic house.
Mm-hmm.
So it is our core focus. We have quite a big production also from our Miss Molly side.
Yeah.
We have some wines that's at a very, very good price. To be quite honest, sometimes I feel too good a price. Quality that you're getting in the end of the day. So you must look here and there for some specialities at a good price. You'll be quite happy.
Should we switch on to that?
Yeah, but maybe just one more question concerning the wine farm, because we haven't talked too much about the wine farm Môreson itself. So since when is it in ownership of the Friedman family?
So Richard Friedman, he was the first winemaker on the farm. Oh, yes. He was the first winemaker on the farm. We actually started one cellar door. It's at the far point, and he really started expanding it. We were established around about 1983. So look, to be quite honest, not exceptionally old, but that's not our core focus. It's not on how old we are, but more about here and now. What are we doing differently? What are we doing better? So yeah, again, like I said, small family farm. We're about 35 hectares in total. We have about 18 hectares Chardonnay. Then we have one block Chenin Blanc, the most grown white cultivar in South Africa. Then about 2 blocks Sauvignon Blanc. But our core focus remains Chardonnay. So then our I haven't mentioned this yet, our reds we do source in. We don't grow them on the farm. The Pinotage from Stellenbosch, Welgevallen cellars, they're planted about from 1994. So it's a very good block. According to Clayton, it's the best block in South Africa that we're getting it from. And then our Cab Sav and Cab Franc is all Franschhoek based. That's pretty cool. So we're getting it in from the right areas. Let me put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting. And also, I mean, Môreson is situated quite perfectly, you have to say, in the middle of Franschhoek. So if you guys are in Franschhoek, definitely pop by. And I mean, also for the German clients, Peter is able to speak a bit of German, right, Peter? Because you have
a bit of German is actually.
Yeah,
a little bit. Wir können auch ein bisschen Deutsch reden.
Exactly. Look at the accent. There's no accent. It's perfect.
Yeah. No. We call it Hessisch German. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, everyone that has to or wants to go to South Africa, obviously now is maybe not the best time to think about it. But yeah, every other time, definitely pop by at Môreson. We can organize something with Peter and Clayton. I think,
definitely.
It's not even 10% probably that we can kind of convey how nice it is on the wine farm, and the whole estate is so nice and beautiful, and having a small breakfast or lunch or something is just amazing. Yeah.
No, we'll take you all over the farm. Don't worry. There's nothing you won't know about the farm.
We should actually organize some group events or something so that 30 German people come to.
Exactly. And now we have it's called the Gin Palace. So if you have big corporates, there's this big venue connected to the distillery that you can actually rent. We have a garden. It looks like an oasis. It's really amazing. People don't walk past it. They walk into it, and then they forget to do wine tasting.
but then you should think about doing the wine tastings on that place, right?
I just thought of that.
Amazing. Okay, so Max and myself, we already switched over to the first red wine, being the Widowmaker Pinotage. For those people who have already participated in our online tastings, we've already introduced that wine to everyone. But once again, this is a pure Pinotage. Unfortunately, it will be discontinued from vintage 2019 onwards. So it is now even more limited, but it's a very special Pinotage, I have to admit. It's a very elegant, full-bodied, very fruity Pinotage, and already when you look at the color, it's so amazing. It's this dark purplish red color that Pinotage normally has, but now even more intense, I have to admit.
Yeah, I mean, just holding, like placing your nose even near to the glass, it already has, like, offers so much flavors. And it's quite unique actually for a Pinotage, I would say.
And Peter knows obviously a bit better, but that's one of the best sellers at your wine farm, right? Like, people who taste the Pinotage are really enjoying it.
Yeah, well, it's the theory is that everybody that walks into the tasting room will walk out with a bottle if they've tried it. Really, it drinks amazingly. What's cool about this vintage is it has a hint of licorice in the back of the palate. This is now 18 months in oak, but it's a lot of red berries, blackcurrant. It's pungent aromas. It's aromas that we're used to. And this is potentially what we want. We don't, want aromas that we're not used to, pencil shavings, things like that.
Yeah.
So again, I'm a big fan of food and wine because I believe they're married together. This is perfect for your gamey meats. If you come to South Africa, have Springbok with it. In Germany, if you have to and you have nothing else there, have some kind of a schnitzel, like a lamb schnitzel. I don't know, but be inventive with it. It's a pretty cool wine. To the name Widowmaker, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole explanation.
Well, we've explained it in the last tasting, but I think it's very special. And as you said, there is an explanation. Like, everyone has his own explanation of it, but the official one originates from aviation, right?
Yes, correct. So it has to do with a Starfighter F-104. So for the pilots out there watching, sit a little bit closer. It's pretty cool. I had some. They were sold to the Germans after World War II. It was from a company called Lockheed. I'm probably boring half of the crowd right now, but there's actually, it's cool. There was neighboring farms, when they knew one was going to lift off, they cleared all their machinery because they know eventually it's going to come down anyways. So just for insurance purposes. But it was actually nicknamed the Needle. It wasn't a great plane. With the name Widowmaker, you don't expect it to be a great plane. It's a pretty cool conversation around the table. It's also a very personal conversation. I think if you have pilots around the table, or people that just want to enjoy life, it's a pretty cool wine.
And how's the exact connection between the plane and the wine then?
So Richard Friedman, Mr. Friedman, he had a lot to do with aviation at a stage. Currently, as far as I'm aware, he's retired. But he used to engineer little particles for planes. So he's very passionate about planes. We have our own hangar on the farm. There's a collection. I can't say how many planes on the farm itself. So, if you look at our FYM, our MKM, our Fudge, that's called the Flight. It's called the Flight for a reason. Everything has a connection with aviation. Yeah. Mekato, it's a projection of a mapping system. everything has. It's only the Mismolierage that's not so serious as no complication with aviation. Yeah.
And so when you drink the wine, you're getting or your wife is getting a widower, or
Well, I always thinking it more in a positive way. You're getting ready for liftoff.
Yeah, sometimes as well, or because it had speed records. I was thinking about like if you drink it, maybe you can run a marathon after it.
Maybe.
Also watching. Actually,
Anything is possible.
actually, Michael, who we went to yesterday, or Michael in German, yeah, we tasted some wines, and he accidentally, or not accidentally, but he decided to run a marathon while being on the what is it, treadmill, and he was just intentionally trying to run like 10 kilometers. Maybe he had a glass of Widowmaker before running a marathon. We don't know.
That's good that it's not in any way connected to getting widowed. Because otherwise it would be a bit staying away from the wines probably now. Otherwise at least
that's the cool thing. Everybody has a different explanation. If you're a heart surgeon, it's actually artery connected to your heart, but that's quite dark. We'd like to kind of lean away from that a little bit, but everybody has their own connection towards it.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, like just tasting it now again, it's just this different fruit varietals that you get in there. It's just very astonishing.
And I mean, we just opened the bottle and it's already so pretty, right? I mean, you can obviously decant it or leave it in the glass for a few more hours, or just open the bottle a few hours earlier. But it's there from the beginning, right? It's amazing.
Exactly. I mean, the nose and palate isn't two different stories. What it shows is what you get in the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know, you get a nice aftertaste as well. It has kind of a, I don't know if you would call it eucalyptus minty kind of aftertaste towards it.
Yeah.
But up front is very berry driven.
No, I mean, and that's what you sometimes get. Actually, I would say you often have that you on the nose get something very different than you get on the palate. And I mean, sometimes it's nice, so that you have maybe a bit more boring flavors on the nose, and you actually get overwhelmed with this completely fruity, let's say, pilotage for example. But then it's kind of, or can be also the other way around, that you get a lot of flavors on the nose, but then the wine is just a bit boring in general. And I think having this very exciting nose that already like gives you more interest, and then just like I don't know, sparks some ideas and some lust for the wine, I think, and then you get it on the
exactly,
which is perfectly, and I think very hard to achieve actually.
And I think also, look, there's a lot of pinotages out there with a lot of complexity. It's very bold, very heavy, kind of in your face. This is a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fresher. You know, if we didn't tell you a pinotage in a blind tasting, a lot of people wouldn't even pick up that it's a pinotage.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing.
No, very good point. I think even now tasting it, it's you probably would think that some pinotage is in there, but you wouldn't know by exactly how much pinotage.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
So maybe a bit more about the situation in South Africa, because we haven't talked too much about it. And also we're going to show a bit of a video of a charity from Franschhoek, because a lot of people, I think, especially in Franschhoek or around Cape Town, are at the moment having a hard time. How's the situation in South Africa? How do you think it's going to be in the future? I mean, it's hard to say, but how is your routine? Or
look, currently, they say, remember, a lot of our GDP is based on tourism. If we don't have tourism, well, we don't have much, to be quite honest. So a lot of, they say now, Minister of Tourism said next year, was it June, July, roughly, they expect tourism to slowly reestablish itself. Then hopefully we can look at the brighter side. But currently we're in the dark with exactly what's happening. The government luckily started taking matters into their own hands very early, and that's what everybody applauds. But currently it's just, we have to kind of see what happens. Franschhoek as such, I think Franschhoek isn't so hugely affected. Bear in mind, it's a very small town.
Yeah.
So luckily, and everybody works together. I live in Stellenbosch, so, in theory, I'm not allowed to go to Franschhoek. But what I've noticed over emails and such is that the community is really trying to work together. I saw now the other day, Margot Janssen is also trying to assist in her own way. I think with a culinary school of some kind. I can't go too in depth on that because I don't know much about it. But you see, everybody's really coming to the ball game.
Yeah, and that's a video that we're going to show in the end to you in order to raise a bit of money for Franschhoek, because a lot of high-class restaurants or kitchens actually collaborated together in order to make food for the poor people in the townships. So that's a thing that we're actually trying to assist or help with, even though we're far away from that, but at least we're trying to.
Yeah, again, it shows the kind of connectivity people have in Franschhoek. Yeah, you can talk about it when you think of wine, but it's just a lot more than that. I think the culinary side and all these restaurants and everything, basically, also when it comes to tourism, is connected in Franschhoek, and I think that is what makes. There's also a big point what makes Franschhoek so interesting and so unique in its way. And I think, and definitely in difficult situations, that plays an important role, and you then tend to see positive effects when we're considering it.
Definitely. All right, coming from a bit of sad stories back to some more cheerful or more delighting things. I think we're going to head over to the Cap Franc, and Cap Franc.
This is my favorite.
And I have to say, Cap Franc is a special varietal and is also, like the Semillon, mostly used in cuvées or blends. But when it's on its own or when it's a single varietal, it has a lot to show if it's well done.
I think we've just briefly before actually started this live stream, we've discussed with Peter that it was very interesting because I was in the warehouse yesterday and I looked at this wine, and next to the wine there was another wine, and on the label sometimes you have the amount of barrels produced. So I looked at the label and I asked myself, it says 11 barrels, and that's not a lot. Obviously it depends on the size of the barrel, but 11 barrel, even if it's a big barrel, is not a lot of wine that you can produce or make out of it. And then I looked to the right, and there was 2,200, I think 63 it was. And it's just crazy to think about it. And then you start realizing what the differences between some bigger wine farms and actually some smaller boutique wine farms are, and also when it comes to quality. So that's very, very interesting anecdote, I think.
No, it definitely is. And if you look at some of our wines, we produce 3 barrels of the Cap Franc. We're looking at 11 barrels. These are exclusive products. Also, your low production wines are wines to also, they're collector's items. Buy yourself a bottle, drink it in a year's time, drink it in 6 months' time. It's not a wine potentially you have to drink now.
Yeah.
So, these low production wines, again, it's based on quality.
Yeah.
Most of all, this Cap Franc, it's incredible. I've been a Cap Franc nerd for a very long time in my life. The first wine I actually tasted when I went into wine was a Cap Franc.
Really?
Yeah. It's quite a funny story because so I tasted it. It was at a farm on your way to the beach, and the lady that was doing the presentation was so good, I actually bought a bottle. I went home. This was, I think then it was with my current wife when she was my girlfriend. I went home and I looked at her and I said, why did we buy this Cat Frank? It's not tasting the same. Then I think it's about 3 or 4 years later, I started at Môreson, and my assistant in the tasting room walks in and I look at her and I say, I know you from somewhere. Was that at that tasting room?
So you made a good choice with the right wine farm, right?
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, we have a good assistant now.
That's good. Maybe it's a good point to cheers.
Yes.
Cheers to everyone who's already watching. And yeah, also cheers to Clayton. I hope he watches the video afterwards. And I'm sure we're gonna be able to do a tasting together with him as well, at least to maybe to introduce 2 or 3 wines. Let's see.
I mean, there's still a lot of cool wines that you guys have in stock, so definitely some interesting stories to tell.
I would say there is still potential to show. So I don't worry about him introducing someone.
Exactly.
Okay, but then you must make sure you have a 10-hour long time frame, eh?
Yeah.
Starts talking. There's no ending.
Yeah, I mean, your time schedule when you have been winemaker of the year is quite tight, right? You have to find the time for the important meetings.
No, but it's incredible the kind of stories he can tell, though. I mean, the farm used to look very different. We used to grow Petit Verdot, stuff like that on the farm as well. So, but that's for him to tell. That's his kind of story.
Yeah, and I mean, when you meet him for the first time, or the first 5 minutes, I mean, you immediately see his passion for wine. It's crazy, and his knowledge is amazing, but also his openness for new things. I think that's one thing that is, I would say, that differentiates him from a lot of other winemakers. His openness and his innovativeness. So I think that's very special about him.
But I think yeah, just generally talking about Môreson, I think that's what is quite unique with the team and everyone that works on the farm is that it's not this old ancient wine farm that is kind of just very conservative, but it's more like this. It's a very young team, you have to say. I mean, with Nikki, with you, it's a very young leading team, and then everyone is working, is doing their part and creating very good wines and selling very good wines. And I think the whole approach is more this not saying taking it less serious, not at all, but just it's a younger approach and a more fun approach, I would say.
And also, like, it sounds so weird, but kind of disruptive, because you I mean, if Clayton doesn't like a wine or the approach or the how it evolves, then he just cuts it out, right? He's very strict with this, and that's what makes your wine so special, I think.
Yes, he's very disciplined. He will kill me for saying this, by the way, but strict and disciplined. You know, if you get nominated so much for winemaker of the year and you actually win it so many times, I mean, it gives you the right to be, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I think it tells also the customers in the end that buy the wines. It's a different story. It's young. It's dynamic. It's very good. And I think this fun and just openness and this just cheerfulness regarding wine, compared with like achieving these results, is I think the perfect combination. So that's why I think it's a very unique wine farm that you guys have there.
Well, that's why we always thought to ourselves, you know, I remember when I started there, then me and Nick had discussions often. The tasting room, the farm is kind of your home away from home.
Yeah.
You can make yourself comfortable in however way you need to. We'll educate you. We'll give you the Môreson experience. We'll give you our experience.
Yeah.
In
German.
Also,
in German, of course.
What more can you ask?
Well, in whatever language you want, we'll figure it out. Don't worry.
depends probably on the amount of alcohol that Peter has already had. So then he gives whatever language he wants to.
Yeah, no,
Wine is a good communicator anyway. So
exactly. But yeah, a little bit more on the Cab Franc. Let me not get too. So we remember we're still drinking wine. So yeah, as you've touched it, it is cool. It's a single cultivar. There's currently, the other day I did some research, there's only about 18 farms currently producing 100% in South Africa. So that's pretty cool to know. Now you get all types of Cab Francs out there. Ours has a little bit of that black pepperiness that comes through on the nose, but a subtle, more of a earthiness. There's a lot of people say wet soil. I don't know if you want wet soil in your glass, but a little bit of earthiness. If you pick up soil from the ground and you smell it, it has a little bit of that connotation that comes through. Now, this, if you want to do yourself a big favor, have this with mushroom risotto. You don't have to have it with ribeye. You don't have to have it with the rumsteak. I know all the big guys out there are going, oh, but I want my red wine with my red meat. You don't need that. Trust me. I'm that kind of guy. I want my red wine with my red meats, but mushroom risotto, it will really knock your socks off.
amazing.
But yeah, this is 18 months in Franschhoek. This vintage is about 65% in New Oak. Obviously, with a Cab Franc, it's all about canopy management. We don't want too much of that kind of greenness in a wine. We don't want any of it, to be quite honest. So this is really an intense wine to produce, but if you produce it good like this, you're stuck with a very, very good wine.
Yeah. And I think it's good that you mentioned it. I think Cabernet Franc on its own, to produce a good one, is very difficult. That's why a lot of wine farms actually don't do it at all, even if they would have the resources to do so. But it's having it on its own, and then also making a name for the wine farm when it comes to that wine is very difficult, I think. And I think you guys achieved that very well. And I mean, looking at it from the sales side is definitely proof.
What is? Sorry for interrupting. What do you think in terms of aging potential? Because I think this wine has a lot of potential also in the future. I mean, it's already, I would say it's already ready, like more than ready, I would say. But for those people who like to put a case aside, how long would you recommend them to store the wine?
So at a stage when Clayton allowed that, I know he's going to tell you the story next time he talks to you. We were selling a lot out of our library, old vintages, and they were selling fast. And I mean, we were selling 2006 vintages, and the stuff tastes amazing, but it's pungent and it's not in your face. It gets this kind of a earthy kind of, I know this sounds awful, but kind of a boiled vegetable kind of touch towards it. But that's on the nose. When you pick it up on the palate, it's the most incredible thing you've drunk in your life.
Yeah.
So with this, I would personally say 15 to 20 years, but again, it's how you prefer to drink it.
Yeah.
You can age it as long as you want, but how do you want to drink it? Do you want to drink it where it's a little bit more tart, heavier, or do you want to drink it softer, lighter, 10 years down the line, perhaps?
Yeah.
So, we produce wines on that concept. We don't say keep it 30 years down the line, it's going to be better. It's not per se going to be better. Maybe for you, maybe it's not as good as better would be.
Yeah.
Completely up to you in the end of the day.
And that's the thing I like about South African wines, because the philosophy in terms of aging wines is a lot more open than in other countries, I would say, because South Africa produces wines that are ready to drink. That you have to say. But as you said, for the Cab Franc, a lot of wines have that potential of aging, but only if you wanted to. You can drink the wine when it's bottled or when it's released. And if you like, you can put some cases aside, but it's not necessary. It's just your preference and your style of how you like the wines.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's also what differentiates wine farms or very very high quality boutique wine farms like Môreson towards or compared to maybe other wine farms is that I mean, you guys release the wines when they are perfect, and other wine farms, they release the wines when they have to. So when their old vintage runs out, and then I think that's a very very unique thing to do, and it's making sure that the end customer that wants to enjoy the bottle of wine at a special occasion at the dinner table with the family, that he has the perfect wine for the perfect moment. And I think that is a huge difference when it comes to the winemaking and releasing.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we have a range, the flight range, the FIM, MKM, and FUD. We keep them back, bottle mature them for about 3 years. Now, a lot of farms do that. Is economically viable. There's a lot of discussions around it, but we want to get it to you at the right time, like you just mentioned. That's very important. If we release it to you too early, there's things like bottle shock that come in effect. It's too heavy, it's too tart. It's just trying to avoid that. But with some wines, you can drink fairly young. Your unwooded Chardonnays, it's really not a problem. So again, just how you prefer it, that's how we want you to drink it.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it is stable in the bottle, then also aging is not really a problem. And I mean, that's also what some wine farms don't really, I think, do completely right. So they place it too soon in bottle, and then you have this unfinished wine kind of, also to say, and then aging becomes maybe a bit difficult. And I think you see that from the vintages, also from the unoaked for unwooded Chardonnay. I mean, very great aging potential for white wine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was about 3 years ago. We went into the library again by accident, and I don't know if Clayton brought out or I brought out unwooded Chardonnay from 1998 or 1997 in that direction.
So sorry to interrupt. Maybe so the library you say is the place where you stock all of your vintage wines, right? Okay.
Yeah. No. 100%.
Sounds like heaven.
So we brought it out, and we were like, "This must be oxidized." I gave him a bottle to try, and we gave it a minute or two to breathe, and it was perfect. Nice. So we went to one of the restaurants, said, would you list it? They listed it. Now I have Swedish clients coming from the restaurant every few days wanting to buy bottles, and we don't have. I mean, it just shows you that nowadays it depends how you store it, and it depends how the wine was produced. Produced properly, it shouldn't have problems. But yeah, sometimes you do have that 1 or 2 bottles that falls through the cracks. But
yeah, good. But that's also with the young wine, So.
Exactly, it will never happen with the Môreson bottle. Don't stress.
No, we have to say we have not had yet a single bottle that was corked from you guys. So it's I mean, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, I mean, Clayton works closely with Amorim that supplies a lot of our corks. Working on methods for them to supply us with corks at TCA free, things like that come into play. And that's pretty cool if you have that.
Yeah, definitely.
Specific vintages, they even give us, if we find a cork bottle, and that's if we ever do, they even refund you directly on the bottle there and then. So I mean, yeah, that's state of the art.
Yeah, I mean, that plays an important role because I mean we had it not often, to be honest, but we had it a few times where everything in the tasting was kind of towards this one bottle so this one big old red wine, and then this bottle was corked, and then you have it's a difficult situation, especially when you have older vintages, very expensive wines. Yeah. Then cork quality plays an important role, and I think taking that seriously when you have cork, or when you use cork in a bottle, it is very very necessary.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, they're doing their best what they can do.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm out of wine.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much more to talk about Môreson and the wines and the terroir and the region. I think we have to keep it a bit short now. Yeah,
let's I would say let's finish it like that. Thank you so much, Peter, for joining us. It was a
100%.
nice chatting to you as always. We hope to be.
Thank you for you guys to have me in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good thing about the virtual experience that you can do this live, even with South Africa. I think I was talking to another winemaker actually earlier today, and he was on the road in South Africa. So he was going because obviously today was the first day to be able to deliver again. And I was just wondering again how good the quality is in South Africa when it comes to mobile network. I mean, when I go from Munich to Nuremberg, which is like a 2-hour drive on the Autobahn, I probably have 10% of actual network, and the rest 90% is zero. So it's actually it's always interesting that South Africa in a lot of ways is actually quite developed. Germany, for instance. Yeah.
I mean, in South Africa, we're fairly well connected. There's a lot of farms wanting to do, virtual things now. Maybe that's the future, I suppose. It's one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, you feel so close, even though it's thousands of kilometers apart, and it's I mean, it's awesome to chat like this. I mean, as you said, like the virus brings some advantages in that way that we actually trying to think that we are trying to do new formats. And I think it was amazing chatting to you. I hope you guys also watching enjoyed it. But that was definitely not the last time that we did these kind of tastings or tastings with Môreson, I would say.
I mean, if maybe one thing that we can say, maybe not for every order, but I think if people order Môreson wines with us, we can definitely try to get Peter to do a lot of tasting videos, personalized. So maybe that's also a good thing or good factor to buy Môreson wines.
And one more thing about that, if we are at that side already. First of all, the people that are watching and are accidentally joined the meeting or whatever, it is possible to watch the meeting afterwards, obviously, and get the tasting package in order to do the tasting with the wines. But also, we're gonna have a 10% discount on the wines until for the next 7 days on the Môreson wines that we just tasted. So if you enjoyed the wines or the one wine that you had in the tasting package, you can obviously order that. We're gonna insert an image now of the discount code that you can use in our store. And if there are any questions, we are always happy to answer them. Also, maybe in addition with Peter, if we're running out of knowledge on some things. No, but it was nice chatting to you, Peter. It was awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Cool, thank you.
We're gonna see each other in real life soon. Even though it doesn't look too good right now, but let's see. Good to see.
But at least
just enjoy a good bottle of Môreson.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm very sure that it won't be the first and last tasting that we do with you guys. So maybe next week or the week after we will it's a
100%
feeling that we have to do it again.
Yeah, and it felt like we were sitting in front of each other now.
Exactly.
Especially
exactly.
The more wine I drank, the realer it felt. No, just kidding.
Yeah, just don't tell my wife.
So cheers again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cool, guys.
Thanks also Clayton for making this great wine. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us, contact us using the website or via phone. And then if you have any intention to go to South Africa and visit Môreson and have the real experience, then we will connect you with Peter and he will do his best to organize a very cool tasting with a cellar tour.
Yeah, definitely.
Stay safe. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Franschhoek, the popular South African tourist town and the wine and food capital of the country, like much of the rest of the world, is on lockdown. The streets, usually bustling with people and cars, are quiet. Restaurants, shops, guest houses and hotels are shuttered. As a result, a large part of the community is now unemployed, and many people, old and young, are going hungry. Government food has been slow to arrive. Well-known chefs from this winelands town are putting their skills to good use and have teamed up with disaster management and local charities to cook for and feed a community in desperate need. Restaurant kitchens have been turned into production lines to prepare food and to assemble food parcels of generously donated goods. These parcels can last each family for up to 10 days. We are now supporting more than 4,000 people through this extraordinary effort, but resources are stretched thin. We are extending this appeal as the humanitarian crisis of COVID-19 deepens and the number of required meals increases exponentially. A donation of 250 Rand can feed a family of 4 for 10 days. Please consider supporting our efforts and help us to feed these families in distress.